You can navigate to Google Classroom several ways. You can go to classroom.google.com, just type it in your Omnibox. You can go from your Chrome homepage. I have it bookmarked because it's a site that I frequently use. So it's here. It's also here on my frequently visited sites, or I can launch it from my Waffle or app launcher. So once I'm at Google Classroom, if this is your first time, you'll see this plus sign up in the corner and you're going to want to create a class. I always have a class going called Sandbox where I can make assignments, I can play around. If you have school age kids, especially ones that are in your own district, you can add them to your Google Classroom so that you can also look at the student view. There's no way from the teacher end for us to see what students are seeing. So I always add my own 3 kids to my Google Classroom, and those are the 3 students you see in here. If your only option in this instance, when you click this plus sign, is to join class and this create class is not an option, that means that at some point, maybe you attended a workshop where you selected that you were a student. Now, Google has some safeguards in place where students can't create a Google Classroom from their EDU account and then invite other students to join. I would think about that in the same way that I would think about leaving a classroom full of students unattended without a teacher in that classroom. Things might happen in there that wouldn't be appropriate for school. Same with this digital platform. Things might happen in a Google Classroom that's created by a student for other students that wouldn't be appropriate for school. So Google does not allow students to be able to create classrooms. If you don't have this create class option, all you need to do is email your school's Google Domain Administrator and ask them just to change your role from student to teacher. And that has happened in many instances that I personally know of where a teacher went to a workshop and they were going to join somebody else's classroom. And because they were joining that classroom in more of a student or a learner role, they just selected student as their role. And now they don't have that option to create a class. But your domain administrator can correct that for you. I do want to say here that I would never want to use my personal Google account to create a Google Classroom and then put actual students in it, because my Gmail account in this instance is an EDU domain. Those EDU domains have certain protections like FERPA and COPPA protections that my personal account don't have because it's not associated with an EDU domain. So it's assuming that that person who's using it is not a teacher and would not need those protections. So I would never create a Google Classroom and put students in it on my personal Gmail account, which I do have. And I keep these two very separate because I'm involved in other organizations, charitable organizations, and I don't want those emails coming to my school account because I'm not looking for them there. I'm looking for them in my personal account. So I keep these very separate. So if you have this create class option here, you're just going to create your first class. The only thing that's required when creating a class is a class name. So once I filled that in, I don't have to fill in a section or a subject or a room. You do have the option to come back and edit that information at a later time if you want to. So I'll just create this class so we can see. And it's going to populate a new class called Eckert's class here on my home screen for Google Classroom. Once it's created, it's going to give it a card. I'm going to navigate back here for just a minute. So now I have this card. I can drag and drop these in any order I want. So if you have, 5 sections of Algebra 1, you could organize these by your first period, second period, and so on. Here on this home screen, I've got several options. This is where I can go in and edit all that information that I left off if ever you want to. You can also do that from inside Google Classroom. I've got the option to archive this class, which means that it's not going to be visible here anymore, but usually you archive a class at the end of a semester or at the end of an academic year so that it's gone from your home screen here, but you still have access to everything, every assignment in that Google Classroom that you created so that you can reuse those assignments at a later date. So just by archiving it doesn't mean that the class is going away. You still have access, and you could even restore it at any time that you wanted to. I can make a copy of the class. I can move it, I can drag and drop, or I can move it from here. I've also got this option to go directly to the gradebook for this classroom. We'll be talking about that a lot. And I've got this option for opening the folder in my Google Drive. So once I create the classroom, it automatically is going to put it in my Google Classroom Drive. And that includes those archived classes. So I'm going to go on into my sandbox, and you're going to see these tabs up at the top. I've got Stream, Classwork, People, and Grades. So this is just going to be a brief overview, and then in the next video, we'll really go into that Classworks tab where we are assigning content to our students. But here in this stream is where I just want to make announcements to my class or have discussions, like a discussion board type of feel. It's mostly for just building community. However, the default setting for this is that any assignments I make over here in classwork are going to show up as a notification here in my stream. Recently, Google made an option for teachers to turn that off, because if I want to say something to my class, I don't want this announcement getting buried under all of the assignments that I'm going to make today. Because if I make 3 assignments in this Google Classroom and I make them after I create this announcement in my stream, those 3 assignments are going to populate above this announcement, and this announcement's going to be buried. So if I want to say, please check in and let me know how you're doing, I can add all sorts of different materials to this. I could link a YouTube video if I wanted my students to practice deep breathing techniques, or a yoga video, or a brain break, or if I just wanted to push out some type of YouTube content to them, I could do that from here. I can attach a file. I can link a certain website, or I can attach something from my Google Drive here. I've had some teachers tell me that their school district has YouTube blocked, so that if they're on campus and students are using a school machine, the students can't open a YouTube video. So I do want to show you that you can go to safeshare.tv and you can take a link from a YouTube video. So let's see. Let's say I want a YouTube video on cosmic yoga. So I'm going to copy the link to this video. I'm just going to hit copy there, and I'm going to put that here in SafeShare. Now it's going to give me a new link for students to watch that video here within SafeShare. So it doesn't have any ads. It doesn't have any recommended videos for them to watch afterwards. It says description can't be emptied. Okay. I just hit check. Now I can take this link and let's just try it. Let's see if I can pop it into this incognito window. Nope, it took me, hold on just a minute. I didn't copy the right link. There we go. That's what I did. I went back to the YouTube link rather than the SafeShare link. So it takes me directly to SafeShare, and then students can view this video within SafeShare instead of viewing it within YouTube. So it's just kind of a workaround. You can only do so many of these per month, so just keep that in mind. Otherwise, it's a paid paid subscription. If you exceed so many per month, then you have the option, if you want to do more, to pay for a subscription to that. So I could take that link then, and I can put it here in my Google Classroom. Let's see. That SafeShare link. And now my students can view that video within SafeShare. They just click on the link and they can view that video even if your school district has YouTube blocked. It's a fantastic service. So you can see that this populated in my stream. Now my students can come in and they can check in, they can add their comments. I have some options here. You see this 3 dots menu that we talked about in Google. That's a menu that means more. So I can, if it gets buried under something and I want to move it back to the top, I can do that from this 3 dots menu. I can edit, delete it, or I can just copy a link straight to it. So if a student says, I can't find something that you posted in the stream, you can go in and you can copy that link. Another thing that I highly recommend you teach your students to do is the keystroke command or Control F. Control F is going to open up this find menu. So if they knew that it was a SafeShare link that I had shared, they could go in and they could search for SafeShare, and it's going to show them where on this page I've used the word SafeShare. It's been mentioned one time in the stream, and there it is. So let's see. Let me search for, I did a cosmic yoga down below too. So there it is. My students can now search for keywords in the stream. And that's not specific just to Google Classroom. This Control F is fantastic for you to be able to use. So if I'm on a web page and let's look for teaching methodology. So if I want to look just for the word, say, pedagogy here, I can hit Control F. It's only mentioned one time on this whole page, and it's right there. What about teacher? Teacher is mentioned 60 times on this page. So it highlighted all 60 times that teacher was mentioned, and now I can navigate through those until I find what I'm looking for. All right, so we're kind of back in the stream. I still want to talk about this stream homepage just for a minute. I've got this 3 dots menu down here to the left too. Can pop, nope, I lied about that. Ignore that. So I can go into this settings menu. I've got a couple options for settings menu here. So I've got the option to edit my class details. I've got this general settings, and this is specific only to this Google Classroom. So I'm in my Sandbox Classroom. Any changes that I make here only apply to this Sandbox Classroom. It's not a universal settings menu, which is what I thought I was going to show you a minute ago, but I'll actually show you in a minute. So I have the option here to reset my class code. So that's back here. This is my class code. This is one way that I can have students join my Google Classroom. So if I'm a classroom teacher, on the first day of school, I already want to have my Google Classroom created, and I want students to be able to join that Google Classroom in case we get shut down in a week or 2 weeks and we have to go back to distance learning. I'm going to want all my students already in my Google Classroom from day one. And this class code is one way that they can join my Google Classroom. So back here, I can reset that code. Sometimes you'll get some ambiguous numbers or letters in here, like sometimes a 1 looks like a lowercase l, or the kids think an L is a 1. So if you have some kind of ambiguous letter or number in here and you think it's going to be hard for your students to navigate, you can just reset that as many times as you want until you get one that you think your students will be able to navigate without any issues. Right now, I have my stream setting to students can only comment, because I don't want students to be able to post in the stream, which is an option. But then if I've made an announcement to my class that I want them to see as they come into my Google Classroom for the day, but a student makes a post from their Google Classroom in my stream, my post gets moved down and it gets buried, especially if I've got multiple students posting in the stream. Theirs are populating over mine, and mine gets buried so that other students can't find it who need to see it. So I have mine set to students can only comment. You also have the option to make it where only teachers can post or comment. Now, teachers is plural because you can add co-teachers to your class. This can be teachers from your team who need to be able to have access to your students for whatever reason. This can be your specialist teachers, your PE teachers, music, art, so on, who want to be able to push out assignments to your Google Classroom. I'm a specialist at my school. I see like 700 students every 2 weeks starting this year. And so I don't necessarily want to make my own Google Classroom for every class of students that I see. And that's going to be super time consuming for me. So I'll just ask teachers to then make me a co-teacher in their class, and I'll be able to post or make comments on the days that I would be able to see their class if we were in person. But I keep mine on students can only comment. And this one is the most important thing I want to tell you about these stream settings. Classwork on the stream. The default is show condensed notifications. So that's what yours is already set to. However, if you do that, you're going to run into that issue that we talked about before, that any post you make in your stream is then going to get buried under all the assignments that you make that day. So I have this set to hide notifications of classwork on the stream. I only want that stream to be used for announcements that I make to my class. Now, this show deleted items, if you were to have a student say comment on a post with something that maybe wasn't appropriate to the topic or wasn't just appropriate in general, you can go in and you can delete that item, but you still want to be able to have a record just for documentation purposes and student accountability that post was made. So you don't want to delete it forever, which you can't, but you can delete it from the view of students. But you still want to be able to see those items that you deleted. So I have this toggled on to show deleted items, and then it says only teachers can view deleted items. So once you delete something, it will be kind of grayed out where your students can't see it, but you still have access to it so that you could communicate that with administrators or parents or guardians. And then this guardian summaries, that's just something that you can toggle on or off. Once you connect parents, the parents are going to set that up on their end, and you're not going to have to so much worry about whether or not they get those summaries, because as soon as you add the parents, they're going to get an email asking how often do they want to get a summary, whether that's off or on. You've got this Google Meet link here. You can reset that link anytime you want. Right now, back on my homepage, there's this I that has the slash through it. That's because this is not visible to students. It's only visible to me. Google is rolling out some new settings for their Google Meets where students won't be able to join ahead of the teacher. But for now, if I make this link visible to my students and I'm not in there, students can still join. And so they're kind of putting that safeguard in place, but I don't believe that update has rolled out yet. So I keep this toggled off up until I'm ready to join that meet. Then I can go in, I can go ahead and join the meet, and then I come back here to my settings and I toggle that on. That way I'm already in the menu and my students can't join until I'm in. So when you're done with that meeting, you can just toggle this back off, and you can even reset it. That way students can't copy it when they initially go into the meeting and then open a new meeting with that link with other students without you present. And then this bottom feature here in your settings menu is grading. So you can just see how you want to set your gradebook up. How do you want your overall grade calculation to be? Is that going to be weighted by category or just by total points? Do you want students to be able to view their overall grade? Now, I keep this one toggled off because I don't want the students to see their Google Classroom grade, because that's, especially if we're in person, all of the grades that I'm assigning won't be coming specifically through Google Classroom. I'll have lots of other tasks that they'll be doing for grade. If we go to distance learning, that may change, but for now, especially if we're in person, this is only going to be a portion of their grade. It's not going to be their whole grade. Now, when you leave after you've adjusted these settings, and don't forget to go in and make this classwork in the stream where you hide notifications. That one for me is the most important setting that you need to monitor. And then second being that, you need to make a decision about whether you want your students to be able to post in the stream, and then therefore your posts get buried under student posts. So I set that to students can only comment. Just hit save, and all those settings that we just adjusted are now applied. So that's the settings menu that's specific to this Google Classroom. But I also have a settings menu here, and it's a universal settings menu. So all of these settings that I make here are going to apply to all of my Google Classrooms. And these primarily deal with email notifications. So I'm a co-teacher in lots of classes normally. So I want to come in and I just want to turn off classes where I am a co-teacher, which I've deleted for the purposes of making this video. I've archived those, so I'm not any right now. But it says, on a class that you co-teach, do you want to receive emails about every time a student submits work or every time a student makes a comment on something? No, I don't necessarily want to receive those things when I'm a co-teacher in a class, only if I'm the teacher of that class. So I can adjust all those there in that settings menu. While we're talking about this menu over here, I also want to talk about this to review. So to review is like a great to-do list for you, and your students also have this option, and it says to do. So all the assignments that you make today, and if your student is caught up on everything, when they click to do on their end, it's just going to show the items that are new that they have not yet submitted or turned into you. So this is going to be a fantastic tool for you to teach your students to use there from day one, because it's going to show them everything that they need to do. And it's not just specific to one class. They can toggle among multiple classes here so that they can see, well, this is what I have to do for Sandbox, and this is what I have to do for Mrs. Eckert's class. And if they're done with everything, it gives them this notification that says, you don't have anything to do, lucky you. Okay. It also gives me access to my calendar. So Google Calendar is going to be integrated into all of your Google Classrooms, and it's integrated for your students too. So as you make assignments, yours are going to be color-coded in your Google Calendar, and your students are going to have that same feature, that nice color coding, so that they can see everything for Mrs. Eckert's Sandbox class is blue, everything for so-and-so's algebra class then might be a different color. That's a pretty nice feature for students to be able to kind of color code and organize that in their Google Calendar. It's done for them. There's nothing they have to do. All right. You also have access to all your archived classes here. And that's where if you ever, for any reason, wanted to go in and restore one of those archived classes, you would do that from here. So you can always go back and access any class that you've ever archived before. So that's everything in the stream. The next video in this playlist is going to be on the classwork.